The iron gates of Thornwick Manor shrieked like dying things. Elena Ashford stood before the entrance to her inheritance, rain streaming down her face, soaking through the threadbare wool of her traveling cloak. The solicitor's letter had been clear distant relation, no living heirs, the estate now hers. What the letter hadn't mentioned was the suffocating darkness that seemed to pulse from the manor's stone walls, or the way the windows reflected nothing, not even the storm-choked sky. She should have turned back, but she had nowhere else to go. The fever had taken her parents 3 months ago. The landlord had taken their rooms 2 weeks after that. London's streets were cruel to young women alone, crueler still to those without coin or connection. Thornwick Manor isolated in the Yorkshire moors, abandoned for a generation. It was madness to come here. It was her only choice. Elena pushed through the gates. They swung open soundlessly now, as if the manor itself had been waiting. The gravel drive crunched beneath her boots, each step drawing her deeper into the estate's suffocating embrace. Gargoyles leered from the roofline. Bare trees clawed at the twilight. And somewhere in the distance, a bell tolled. Though she could see no church, no tower, the front door stood ajar. Her breath misted in the cold as she climbed the stone steps. "Hello." Her voice echoed in the cavernous entry hall. Dust motes danced in the dim light filtering through stained glass windows, crimson and midnight blue, depicting scenes she couldn't quite decipher. Saints, demons. The figures seemed to shift when she wasn't looking directly at them. The hall stretched impossibly long, lined with portraits whose eyes followed her movement. She caught her reflection in a tarnished mirror, pale, hollowed by hunger and sleepless nights, dark hair plastered to her skull. She looked like a ghost. "Please," she whispered to the emptiness. "I just need shelter. Just for tonight." "So do I," Elena spun, heart lurching. A child stood in the shadows of the grand staircase, a girl no more than 7, with luminous gray eyes and hair the color of winter moonlight. She wore a white nightgown, pristine despite the manor's decay, and her feet were bare against the cold marble. "Who?" Elena's voice caught. "Who are you? Lillian?" The girl descended 3 steps, moving with eerie grace. "I've been alone here for so long. The others left, they always leave." Her small fingers gripped the banister. "You need shelter. I need a mother." The words struck Elena like a physical blow. "Sweetheart, I'm not, I can't." "You're kind." Lillian descended another step. "I can feel it. You won't hurt me. You won't send me away." Her eyes glistened, impossibly bright in the gloom. "Please. I'm so tired of being alone." Elena's throat tightened. She thought of her own childhood. Before the fever, before the cold indifference of survival. She thought of what it meant to be abandoned. "Where are your parents?" "Gone." Lillian's voice was barely a whisper. "Like everyone else. But you're here now. You came to Thornwick. That means something. Bloodline always returns." The last sentence came out strange, stilted, as if reciting something memorized. "I don't understand." "You will." The girl smiled, and for just a moment, her teeth seemed too sharp, too white. "He'll explain everything." Ice flooded Elena's veins. "Hey!" A door slammed somewhere in the manor's depths, a sound like a gunshot. The candles in the wall sconces flared to life simultaneously, casting the hall in wavering golden light. Shadows stretched and twisted, and Elena felt it then, a presence, ancient, watching, hungry. "You shouldn't have spoken to her." The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, velvet wrapped around iron, beautiful and terrible. "You shouldn't have made promises you cannot keep." Elena backed toward the door, but her feet wouldn't obey. The air had grown thick, viscous, holding her in place. Lillian remained on the stairs, perfectly still now, no longer a frightened child but something else entirely, a lure, a trap. "She's not what you think." The voice drew closer, though Elena could see no one. "Neither is this place." "Neither am I. Show yourself." Elena's command cracked with fear. The shadows at the top of the staircase coalesced. First, the suggestion of a form, broad shoulders, tall frame. Then details emerged like a photograph developing a man, or the shape of one, descending the stairs with predatory fluidity. His features were aristocratic, carved from marble and darkness, high cheekbones, a cruel mouth, eyes that burned like embers in a dying fire. He wore black from throat to boot, funeral attire for a funeral house, but it was his presence that stole her breath. Power radiated from him, old and patient and absolutely lethal. "I am Draven Thornwick," he said, stopping 3 steps above Lillian, "lord of this estate, master of its secrets." His gaze locked on Elena, and she felt stripped bare, every fear and desire laid open before him. "And you, Elena Ashford, have just invited yourself into a covenant you cannot possibly comprehend." The manor's heartbeat synchronized with her own. Thrum, thrum, thrum. "Welcome home." Blood hair, Draven whispered. Let us discuss what you owe. The candles extinguished as one, plunging the hall into absolute darkness. The darkness lasted 3 heartbeats. When the candles reignited, Elena found herself no longer in the entrance hall, but in a library that defied architecture, shelves rising toward a vaulted ceiling lost in shadow. Leather, bound volumes radiating cold like tombstones, and at the room's heart, a massive desk of blackened wood inlaid with silver symbols she didn't recognize. Draven stood before the fireplace, his back to her, flames casting his silhouette in sharp relief. He hadn't moved, yet somehow he'd transported them both. Magic dark. Ancient magic that made her skin prickle with primal warning. How did you? Elena's voice fractured. She pressed against the door behind her, but the handle wouldn't turn. Locked, or perhaps simply refusing her escape. Set. Draven gestured to a velvet chair without looking at her. Not a request. A command that her body wanted to obey despite her mind screaming resistance. I'll stand. He turned then, and the full weight of his attention crashed over her like a wave. His eyes weren't brown or black as she'd first thought, they were crimson at their depths, the color of wine and wounds. You'll sit, Miss Ashford, because what I'm about to tell you will bring you to your knees regardless. Elena's legs trembled, but she remained standing. I want to leave. This place, whatever this is, I'll find somewhere else. There is nowhere else. His voice softened, became almost gentle, which somehow made it worse. Your bloodline bound you to Thornwick 2 centuries ago. The moment you crossed the threshold, the Covenant recognized you. You cannot leave now. Not alive. The words hung between them like a death sentence. That's insane. But even as Elena said it, she remembered the gates opening soundlessly, the way the manor had seemed to pull her forward, the strange phrase Lillian had spoken, a bloodline always returns. Draven moved to the desk, retrieving a leather journal so old its pages crackled. Your ancestor, Marguerite Ashford, came to me in 1823. She was dying of consumption, her infant daughter wasting beside her. He opened the journal, and Elena saw elegant script in faded ink, a woman's handwriting. She begged me to save the child. I told her the price. What price? Elena whispered, blood for blood, life for life. Draven's finger traced the words on the page. I would save her daughter through my blood, transform the child's mortality into something more resilient, extending her life far beyond natural years. But in exchange, the Ashford line would owe me a debt. Every 3rd generation, a daughter would return to Thornwick to serve as my companion. My anchor to humanity. His eyes found hers. You are the 3rd generation, Elena. You are what was promised. The room spun. Elena gripped the back of the chair she'd refused to sit in. Companion. What does that even mean? It means you stay, you keep the manor. You keep me from becoming the monster I was before Marguerite's. Plea reminded me what it meant to protect rather than prey. He closed the journal with deliberate care. It means your presence here tempers the darkness. Your blood, your humanity, they are a leash on the beast. I'm not a sacrifice. Elena's voice shook with fury now, burning through the fear. I'm not some offering to appease a... She couldn't say the word, couldn't make it real. Vampire. Draven supplied it with cold precision. Say it, Elena. Know what I am, what you've bound yourself to. The word lodged in her throat like broken glass. Vampire. Creature of nightmare in Gothic novels. Impossible, yet here he stood too pale. Too still, his chest neither rising nor falling with breath. And his eyes, God help her. His eyes burned with an inhuman hunger that made her pulse hammer in her throat. Lillian, Elena gasped. A ward. A child I saved decades ago when her family was slaughtered by others of my kind. Draven's expression darkened. She is neither vampire nor entirely human anymore. The blood I gave her to preserve her life suspended her aging, trapped her in twilight. She needs a caretaker, someone warm, someone who remembers gentleness. You want me to mother a child while... What? You feed on me. Drain me slowly. For the first time, something like pain flickered across Draven's features. I haven't fed from a human in 50 years. I sustain myself on animal blood, on the bare minimum required to maintain existence. He took a step toward her, and Elena flinched. He stopped immediately. But your presence here will cost you regardless. The manor feeds on life force, on warmth. You'll feel it, exhaustion, coldness seeping into your bones. Without my protection, Thornwick itself will consume you within a month. Protection. Elena laughed bitterly. You're the danger, no? His voice dropped to a growl. I'm the only thing standing between you and true horror. There are others, vampires who still hunt, still kill. They know about Thornwick. They know about the Covenant. And they'll come to test whether I've gone soft, whether my protection is worth their fear. He moved closer, close enough that Alina caught his scent. Stone and aged parchment and something metallic, blood. You need shelter, Elena, I need. Tethering. We are bound now whether you accept it or not. Then break the covenant. She met his burning gaze, refusing to look away. If you're not the monster, if you're so controlled, release me. Silence stretched between them, heavy with centuries of loneliness and hunger. I cannot. Driven finally said, and for a moment he sounded almost human, almost vulnerable. The covenant is blood magic. It requires blood to unmake. Either yours, willingly spilled in ritual, which would kill you, or mine, which would end my existence. His hand lifted as if to touch her face, then fell away. We are trapped together, you and I. The question is whether we endure it as enemies, or as something else. The fire crackled. Somewhere in the manor, Lillian began to sing, a lullaby in a language Alina didn't recognize. What happens now? She whispered. Draven's smile was terrible and sad. Now you learn what it means to live in the dark. Alina didn't sleep that first night. Draven had shown her to a bedroom in the east wing, a chamber decorated in midnight blue and silver, with a canopied bed draped in velvet and windows that overlooked the moor. Beautiful in a funereal way. A gilded cage. The door doesn't lock from the outside, he told her before leaving. Only from within. You are not a prisoner, Elena. You are protected. She'd locked it anyway. Now, as pale dawn light filtered through the heavy curtains, Elena sat on the window seat and watched fog roll across the grounds like a living thing. The manor sprawled below her, gardens gone wild, a cemetery with tilting headstones, and beyond that, the dark line of forest that seemed to absorb rather than reflect the morning sun. This was her inheritance, her covenant. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Miss Alina. Lillian's voice, small and hopeful. May I come in? Elena's first instinct was to refuse, to maintain some barrier between herself and this strange twilight child. But loneliness was already settling into her bones, and the girl had seemed genuinely lonely last night. Before everything shattered into nightmare, she unlocked the door. Lillian stood in the hallway wearing a different dress now, pale gray, perfectly pressed, her silver, blonde hair braided with black ribbon. She looked like a porcelain doll, too perfect to be entirely real. I brought you breakfast. The girl held a silver tray with tea, bread. Mrs. Garrett from the village brings supplies twice a week. She leaves them at the gate. She won't come closer. A pause. No one does. Alina accepted the tray, her stomach growling despite everything. Why not? They remember the stories. The deaths. Lillian entered the room uninvited, moving to the window with that unnatural grace. Before Lord Draven took his vow, Thornwick was a hunting ground. Villagers disappeared. Bodies were found drained. The Thornwick name became synonymous with darkness. She traced a pattern on the glass. That was a long time ago. But memory is long in places like this. Elena bit into the bread, stale, but edible. And you? How long have you been here? 63 years, said so matter-of-factly as if discussing the weather. I was 7 when my family was murdered by a vampire lord named Constantin. Lord Draven found me in the ruins of our farmhouse, barely alive. He gave me his blood to save me. Her small hand pressed against her chest. I didn't fully turn. I'm caught between. Aging slowed to almost nothing. Needing very little food or sleep. But still, alive, still warm. The bread turned to ash in Alina's mouth. That's monstrous. It's mercy. Lillian turned, her gray eyes too ancient for her childlike face. I would have died that night. Instead, I've lived decades. I've read every book in the library. I've learned 7 languages. I've watched the world change through these windows. Her voice dropped. But I've been so alone. Lord Draven is kind, but he's distant. Cold. He carries centuries of guilt, and it makes him retreat into shadow. I need someone warm. Someone who laughs and cries and lives. Elena's throat tightened. She saw herself in this trapped child, both of them caught in circumstances beyond their control, both seeking connection in a house built on death. I don't know how to be what you need. Elena admitted. You just have to stay. Lillian's smile was heartbreaking in its hope. That's all. Just don't leave. Before Alina could respond, a presence filled the doorway. Draven stood at the threshold, not entering, respecting the boundary of her locked door, even though she'd opened it. He looked different in daylight, or what passed for daylight through Thornwick's perpetual gloom. Less like a Gothic nightmare, more like a man exhausted by his own immortality. Dark circles shadowed his crimson eyes. His black coat hung loose on a frame that seemed almost gaunt. Forgive the intrusion, he said formally. I came to show you the estate. If you're to live here, you should understand the boundaries. The boundaries of my cage. Elena set down her tea with more force than necessary. His jaw tightened. The boundaries that will keep you alive. There are places in Thornwick that are not safe. Rooms where the darkness is concentrated. And the forest. He glanced toward the window. The forest belongs to other things. You must never venture there alone. What things? Wolves that hunt with human cunning. Fae that feed on despair. And worse, vampires who rejected the old codes, who hunt for sport. Draven's voice went cold with remembered violence. Constantin, who killed Lillian's family, still claims territory in those woods. He sees my vow of restraint as weakness. He'll test it. He'll test you. Fear crystallized in Alina's chest. Then let me go. Send me away before. They'll hunt you. Draven stepped closer, still not crossing the threshold. The moment you leave Thornwick's wards, they'll sense the covenant mark on your blood. You're bound to me now, Alina. That makes you a target. Here, under my protection, you're sacrosanct. Out there, he shook his head. You wouldn't survive a night. The trap closed tighter. Alina felt the walls pressing in, felt the weight of blood magic and ancient promises crushing her choices to dust. Show me, then. She stood, forcing steel into her spine. Show me my boundaries. Show me what I'm up against. Something flickered in Draven's expression, surprise perhaps, or respect, as you wish. He extended his hand, palm up, an invitation, not a command. Stay close to me. The manner can be temperamental with those it doesn't yet trust. Alina stared at his offered hand, pale, long-fingered, capable of both protection and destruction. Taking it would be an acceptance of sorts. A first step into the darkness. She took it. His skin was cold as marble, but his grip was careful, gentle. Welcome to Thornwick, Elena Ashford, Draven murmured. Let me show you your new world. Draven's hand remained steady around hers as he led Elena through corridors that seemed to shift when she wasn't looking directly at them. The manor is alive, he explained, his voice echoing off stone walls. Not in the way you understand life, but it breathes. It remembers. It was built on a convergence point, where the veil between worlds grows thin. My ancestors chose this location deliberately. Power flows through Thornwick's foundations like blood through veins. They descended a spiral staircase, Lillian trailing behind them like a small ghost, torches ignited as they passed, flames dancing without heat. Elena's breath misted despite the fire. The covenant your ancestor made didn't just bind your bloodline to me, Draven continued. It bound you to the manor itself. Thornwick recognizes Ashford blood. It will protect you, but it will also test you. Test me how? He paused before a door carved with symbols that hurt to look at directly. They seemed to writhe and shift, resisting focus. Some rooms hold memories. Echoes of what occurred here during darker times. If you enter them unprepared, the manor will show you things. Terrible things. Like what? Draven's expression darkened. My history. The centuries before I learned restraint. He released her hand, and Alina immediately felt colder. I was not always the creature you see now. I was a lord who became a monster, who bathed this estate in blood for decades. The manor remembers every death, every scream. Those memories pool in certain chambers like poison. Alina wrapped her arms around herself. Why keep those rooms? Why not destroy them? Because forgetting is a luxury vampires cannot afford. His crimson eyes met hers with brutal honesty. I keep those rooms as penance. As reminder. The moment I forget what I was, I become it again. They moved deeper into the manor through a gallery lined with portraits. Elena recognized the style. Each painting depicted a Thornwick lord, stretching back centuries. And in every portrait, the same face stared out at her. Draven's face. You're all of them, she whispered, stopping before a painting dated 1623. The man in the portrait wore Elizabethan finery, but his eyes held the same ancient sorrow as the creature beside her. 500 years. Draven confirmed. 500 years of existence. Of watching the world change while I remain frozen. Of burying everyone I've ever. He stopped abruptly. Come, there's more to see. They entered what must have been a ballroom once. A vast space with a ceiling painted in faded frescoes of angels and demons locked in eternal combat. Dust motes danced in shafts of light from broken skylights. At the room's center stood a grand piano, untouched by time's decay. This is where the covenant rituals were performed. Lillian said softly, breaking her silence. She moved to the piano, her small fingers trailing across the keys without pressing them. Blood offerings. Binding ceremonies. Lord Draven's vow was sealed here 50 years ago, the night he swore to stop hunting humans. Elena turned to Draven. What made you stop? After centuries of killing, what changed? His jaw clenched. For a long moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then I fell in love. The words fell like stones into still water. Her name was Catherine. Draven's voice went hollow. A village girl who showed me kindness when I deserved none. She didn't know what I was. She saw only a lonely lord who needed light. I tried to stay away. I knew what I would do. But I was weak. He moved to the piano, standing opposite Lillian. I took too much. I drained her slowly over months, addicted to her blood, her warmth, her humanity. By the time I realized I was killing her, it was too late. Elena's chest constricted. She died. In this room. In my arms. Begging me to let her go. His hands gripped the piano's edge, knuckles white. I swore then, on her blood, on her memory, I would never take human life again. I would master the hunger, or I would walk into the sun and end myself. But you didn't end yourself, Elena said quietly. No. Draven's eyes found hers across the piano. Because Catherine made me promise. With her dying breath, she made me swear I would find purpose. That I would use immortality to protect rather than destroy. A bitter laugh. She had such faith in me even as I murdered her. Such foolish, beautiful faith. The ballroom seemed to pulse with old grief, old blood. Elena felt it seeping through the floorboards. Decades of violence and the single act of love that had redeemed a monster. The covenant with my ancestor. Elena said slowly, understanding dawning. It wasn't just about debt. You needed it. You needed a reason to stay human. Yes, the admission seemed to cost him. Every third generation an Ashford daughter returns. She lives here, keeps the manor, reminds me why I made the vow. Without that anchor, he trailed off, but Elena understood the unspoken threat. Without her, he would slip back into darkness. What happened to the others? Elena asked. The Ashford women before me. Lillian looked away. Draven's expression went carefully blank. They fulfilled their terms, he said. 30 years as the covenant requires. Then they were free to leave with enough wealth to live comfortably. But living here changes you. Draven's voice dropped to barely above whisper. The manor, the darkness, the knowledge of what exists beyond the veil, it marks you. Makes normal life impossible. Most found themselves drawn back eventually, seeking the shadows they'd learned to navigate. Elena shuddered. 30 years. 3 decades of living alongside a vampire, in a manner that breathed darkness, knowing things that would shatter ordinary minds. What would be left of her after 30 years? I need air, she gasped, suddenly suffocating under the weight of centuries and blood debts and terrible destiny. Draven nodded. The garden. I'll show you. But stay within the hedgerows. Beyond them. I know. Danger. Death. Constantine. Elena pulled away from the piano. Led the way, my lord. Show me the boundaries of my beautiful cage. His eyes flashed with something. Pain, anger, regret, before he turned toward the door. This way, he said. Mind the thorns. The garden was a study in Gothic decay, beauty surrendered to wildness. Elena stepped through the conservatory doors into an explosion of overgrown roses, their blooms so dark they appeared black in the afternoon shadows. Ivy strangled marble statues of weeping angels. A fountain stood silent at the garden's heart, its basin filled with stagnant water that reflected the sky like tarnished silver. This was my mother's garden, Draven said, standing at the threshold as if unable to fully enter. Before she died. Before I was turned. Elena glanced back at him. You were human once, 300 years ago. He remained framed by the doorway, neither inside nor out, caught between worlds like everything in Thornwick. I was the youngest son of a minor lord. Arrogant, reckless. I went hunting in the forest one night and became the prey. His hand touched his throat absently. A vampire named Severin turned me. Not out of mercy or love, but boredom. He wanted a companion to entertain him through eternity. Where is he now? Dust. Draven's voice went cold. I killed him after a century of servitude, learned everything he knew, then staked him at dawn. He met her gaze. I am not proud of what I've done, Elena, but I won't lie about it either. I am a monster trying to remember how to be a man. Elena turned back to the garden, trying to process the casual mention of murder, of centuries of violence. The roses swayed without wind, their thorns glinting like knives. The hedgerows, she said, changing the subject before the darkness overwhelmed her. Where are they? Draven finally stepped into the garden, moving with fluid grace along a moss-covered path. There, see the boxwood maze. That marks the boundary. Beyond it lies the forest proper. Constantine's territory. The maze rose 12 feet high, its walls so thick with growth they appeared solid. Elena approached cautiously, feeling a shift in the air as she drew near, a pressure, like walking into a wall of water. The wards. Draven explained, stopping beside her. Blood magic woven into the hedgerows themselves. My blood, specifically. It creates a barrier that other vampires cannot easily cross without invitation or overwhelming force. He placed his palm against the hedge, and Alina saw faint crimson light pulse through the branches. Within these walls, you are protected. Beyond them, a howl erupted from the forest, too close, too intelligent to be natural. Alina stumbled backward and Draven's hand shot out, steadying her. His grip was iron cold but careful. Constantine's wolves, he murmured. They patrol the boundary. Testing, always testing. Why doesn't he just attack? Elena's voice shook. If he wants to challenge you, why wait? Because he's old, patient. He's waiting for me to make a mistake. Draven's jaw tightened. Or for you to make one. One moment outside the wards without me, and you'll become the catalyst for war. Alina pulled away from his touch, needing distance from the cold and the danger, and the terrible intimacy of being someone's anchor. She walked toward the fountain, needing to move, to think, to breathe. Tell me about my ancestor, she said. Marguerite, what was she like? Draven followed at a careful distance. Fierce, desperate. She arrived at Thornwick with her daughter wrapped in rags, both of them burning with fever. I told her the price, that saving the child would bind their bloodline to me for generations. She didn't hesitate. He stopped at the fountain's edge. She said some debts were worth paying, that her daughter's life was worth any future sacrifice. And the child. My grandmother's grandmother, lived to be 83. Married, had children, died peacefully in her sleep. Draven's expression softened slightly. Margaret's bargain worked. The touch of my blood in that child's veins strengthened the entire line, made them resilient, longer lived, less susceptible to disease. Alina stared at him. You're saying I'm stronger because of vampire blood. Diluted across generations, yes. You'll heal faster than normal. Resist illness better. Live perhaps 10 or 20 years longer than you might have otherwise. He paused. But it also marks you, makes you, appetizing to others of my kind. Your blood carries an echo of mine. To vampires like Constantine, you're a delicacy. Nausea churned in Elena's stomach. She was branded. Marked prey because of a choice made 2 centuries before her birth. I hate this, she whispered. I hate that my life isn't my own, that every choice was made for me before I was even born. I know. Draven's voice carried genuine regret. If I could break the covenant without killing you, I would. But blood magic is absolute. It requires balance, a life given for a life taken. There is no escape that doesn't end in death, yours or mine. Elena trailed her fingers in the fountain's stagnant water. Her reflection stared back at her, pale, dark-eyed, trapped. Behind her reflection, she saw Draven's form, but it was strange, distorted, less solid than hers. You don't have a reflection, she realized, not a true one. Mirrors reflect the soul, or so the old stories claim. My soul is. He knelt beside the fountain, close enough that she felt the unnatural cold radiating from him. But you do. You're still alive, Elena. Still warm. Still capable of choice within the boundaries you've been given. What choice? She turned to face him, anger flaring. Stay and slowly become like the others, changed, darkened, marked by shadow. Or try to leave and be hunted. The choice to hate me or to understand me. His crimson eyes held hers with startling vulnerability. The choice to make these 30 years a prison or a partnership. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect tolerance. But I offer you honesty, respect, and protection with every ounce of power I possess. A scream shattered the moment, high, terrified, unmistakably Lillian's. Draven moved faster than Elena's eyes could track, a blur of black coat and inhuman speed. She ran after him, thorns tearing at her skirts as she crashed through the garden toward the house. In the conservatory doorway, Lillian stood frozen, staring at something on the ground, a dead raven, its throat torn out, blood spelling a message on the marble, Suaridar Tei Orbora Hayar. Draven's growl was pure predator. Constantine. The dead raven's blood gleamed wet and accusatory in the fading light. Elena couldn't look away from the message, couldn't stop her mind from translating the thread into terrible clarity. Surrender the hair or bury her. Her. Not the manor, not the covenant her. She was the target, the prize in a game she hadn't known she was playing, inside now. Draven's voice cut through her paralysis. He swept Lillian into his arms with unexpected gentleness, but his eyes had gone completely crimson, no trace of humanity left. Elena, move. She stumbled backward into the conservatory as Draven slammed the doors. The glass rattled in their frames. Beyond the hedgerows, the forest erupted with movement, shadows flowing between trees, too many to count, circling the wards like sharks scenting blood. Has brought his coven, Draven said flatly, setting Lillian down. The girl clung to his coat, silent and trembling. This isn't a test anymore. This is a declaration? Off what? Elena's voice came out strangled. War. He moved to the windows, his body coiled with predatory tension. Constantine has been waiting decades for an excuse to challenge my territory. You've given him one. Fury ignited in Alina's chest, burning through the fear. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask to be bound to you, to be marked, to be hunted. I know. Draven's acknowledgement held no defensiveness, only grim acceptance. But intention doesn't matter to creatures like Constantine. Only opportunity. And you, Alina Ashford, are an opportunity he cannot resist. He turned from the window, and for the first time she saw something like fear in his expression. If he takes you, he breaks the covenant. Thornwick's wards will fail. Everything I've built, every protection I've placed, it all collapses. Then give me to him. The words escaped before Alina could stop them. Let me go. Save yourself and Lillian in this cursed place. No. Lillian's voice, small but absolute. She released Draven's coat and moved to Elena, her ancient eyes blazing in her child's face. He won't just take you. He'll torture you, break you, make Lord Draven watch as he drains you slowly, keeping you alive for months just to savor your suffering. Her small hands gripped Elena's skirts. Constantine is cruelty given form. He'll destroy you to destroy Lord Draven. Elena looked to Draven, seeking denial, finding none. She's right, he said quietly. Constantine doesn't kill quickly. He's an artist of agony. I've seen his work. His hands clenched into fists. I won't let him have you. I'll turn every vampire in that forest to ash before I let him touch you. The vehemence in his voice startled Elena. This wasn't just about the covenant or the manor. This was personal. This was rage born from something deeper than territory. What did he do to you? She asked. Draven's expression shuddered. That's not, tell me. Elena stepped closer, emboldened by fury and fear in equal measure. If I'm going to die for your war, I deserve to know why it's being fought. A long silence. The shadows beyond the windows pressed closer, testing the threshold. Somewhere in the house, wind howled through unseen corridors. He killed Catherine, Draven finally said, each word dragged from some deep, wounded place. After I took my vow, after I stopped hunting, Constantine found her grave and he stopped, swallowed. He desecrated it, left pieces of her for me to find, called it a gift, freedom from the weakness of loving mortals. Elena's breath caught. That's why he's challenging you now. Because you're another mortal under my protection. Another potential weakness. Draven's jaw worked. He thinks history will repeat, that I'll grow attached, lower my guard, give him an opening. His eyes found hers, burning with intensity. He's not entirely wrong. The admission hung between them like a confession. Before Elena could respond, glass exploded inward. A figure crashed through the conservatory window in a shower of crystal shards. A woman, impossibly beautiful, with hair like spilled ink and eyes that glowed gold in the dimness. Lord Draven. Her voice was smoke and honey. Still hiding behind wards and mortal pets. How pathetically domestic you've become. Draven moved faster than thought, placing himself between the intruder and Elena. Celine, you're bold to cross my threshold uninvited. The vampire woman laughed, brushing glass from her crimson gown. Invited by desperation, perhaps. Your wards are weakening, my lord. Can't you feel it? The covenant magic frays with every hour that little morsel stands within these walls, terrified and unwilling. She inhaled deeply, her gaze sliding to Elena with predatory interest. She smells divine. Ashford blood mixed with your ancient claim. Constantine will savor her for years. He'll have to go through me. Draven's voice dropped to a lethal growl. That's the idea. Celine circled them with liquid grace, ignoring Lillian entirely as if the girl were furniture. Constantine offers you a choice, old friend. Surrender the hair willingly, walk away from this crumbling estate, and he'll grant you safe passage to any territory you choose. Start fresh, unburdened, or... Draven's hands had become claws, his humanity peeling away to reveal the predator beneath, or watch her die screaming while we tear Thornwick stone from stone. Celine's smile was all teeth. You have until the blood moon rises. 3 nights. Decide whether one mortal girl is worth centuries of your existence. She moved toward the shattered window, then paused, looking back at Elena with something almost like pity. Run while you can, little heir. Beg him to release you, because if you're still here when the moon rises red. She drew one elegant finger across her throat. Well, Constantine's appetites are legendary. Then she was gone, melting into shadow and moonlight. Elena's legs gave out. She sank to the floor among the glass shards, shaking uncontrollably. Lillian knelt beside her, silent tears streaming down her porcelain face. Draven stood motionless, staring at the broken window. 3 days, he whispered. 3 days to decide who dies. Elena couldn't stop shaking. Draven carried her to the library, She had no memory of how they'd gotten there, only that suddenly she was in the chair by the fire, a blanket around her shoulders, and her teeth were chattering despite the flames. Drink. Draven pressed a crystal glass into her hands. Brandy, amber and sharp. She drank without thinking, the burn cutting through the shock. Lillian curled on the hearth rug like a cat, her gray eyes reflecting firelight. Silent. Watchful. I won't let him take you. Draven's voice came from somewhere behind Alina, steady and absolute. There are other options. Protections I haven't invoked yet. Like what? Alina's voice sounded foreign to her own ears, hollow, distant. You said the wards are weakening. That Celine crossed your threshold. If your own territory betrays you, the manor doesn't betray. It responds to truth. Draven moved into her line of sight, crouching before her chair so their eyes were level. His face had returned to its carefully human mask, but she could see the tension in every line. The covenant requires willing participation. Your fear, your resistance, it creates cracks in the foundation. Makes the magic unstable. So this is my fault. Anger cut through Alina's shock like a blade. I'm not willing enough to be your prisoner so the protections fail? No. His contradiction was immediate, fierce. This is Constantine's fault. Celine's fault. Mine for binding your bloodline 2 centuries ago. He reached out slowly, telegraphing the movement, and took the empty glass from her trembling hands. But there is a way to strengthen the wards. To make you untouchable even to Constantine's full coven. Elena's pulse hammered. How? Draven stood, pacing to the fire. The flames cast his shadow long and monstrous across the floor. A true blood bond. Not the diluted connection you inherited, but an active exchange. My blood, willingly taken. Your blood, willingly given. It would weave you into Thornwick's protections, so thoroughly that harming you would be like harming the manor itself. The implications crashed over Alina like a wave. You want to feed on me. I want to save you. He turned, and the naked honesty in his expression stole her breath. A blood bond isn't just feeding. It's intimate. Sacred in its way. It creates a connection between donor and vampire that transcends hunger. I would taste your emotions, your dreams. You would feel my presence constantly, like a second heartbeat. His hands clenched. It's invasive. Permanent, and I have no right to ask it of you. But you're asking anyway, because the alternative is watching Constantine tear you apart. The words came out raw, scraped from something deeper than duty. I have lived 5 centuries, Elena. I have committed atrocities that would break your mind to know. But I cannot, stand by while another innocent dies because of my failures. Elena looked at Lillian, who'd remained silent through the exchange. What do you think? The girl's ancient eyes held hers. The bond would change you, make you stronger faster. You'd heal from injuries that would kill normal humans. Need less sleep, less food, she paused. But you'd also be bound to him in ways that can't be undone. You'd feel his hunger, his grief, his centuries of loneliness. It's not just your blood he'd be taking, it's your solitude. Would I become like you? Elena asked. Trapped between. No, Draven interjected. Lillian received my blood as a dying child. The transformation was interrupted, incomplete. You're an adult strong, with Ashford blood already marked by my line. The bond would enhance your humanity, not replace it. You'd remain mortal. You'd age, eventually die. But while you lived, he trailed off. While I lived, I'd be yours. Elena finished the thought, understanding the full weight of what he offered. Not just protection, but possession. A joining that went beyond covenant or contract into something primal. Draven's expression twisted. Not mine. Never mine. You'd be bonded, yes, but I would be equally bound to you. Your pain would be my pain. Your death. He stopped, something flickering across his face too quickly to name. The bond works both ways, Alina. It's not slavery. It's partnership written in blood. Alina stood, the blanket falling away, and moved to the fire. She could feel Draven's gaze on her back, heavy, waiting, desperate in ways he'd never voice. 3 days until the blood moon. 3 days until Constantine came for her with his coven of nightmares. She thought of her parents, dead from fever while the world went on uncaring. She thought of London's streets, the hunger and cold and men who looked at young women like prey. She thought of the solicitor's letter that had brought her here, promising inheritance and security. She'd come to Thornwick seeking shelter. Perhaps she'd found something else entirely. If I agree, Alina said slowly. I want conditions, she heard Draven's sharp inhale. Name them. I want Lillian released from her twilight state. Find a way to let her grow up, live fully, or let her choose to complete the transformation. Elena turned to face him. I want honesty between us, no more secrets about your past or the covenant or what's coming. And I want, She paused, gathering courage. I want to matter. Not as a debt or an anchor or a tool to keep you human, but as a person you've chosen to protect because you believe I'm worth protecting. Draven stared at her, something like wonder dawning in his crimson eyes. You are worth protecting. You've been worth protecting since the moment you walked through those gates, terrified and brave and so achingly alive. He moved toward her, stopping just beyond arm's reach. I cannot promise to free Lillian. Her condition is beyond my understanding even after decades of searching. But I swear to continue trying. I swear honesty between us, no matter how dark the truth. And I swear you will matter, Elena Ashford. Not as anchor or obligation, but as the woman who faced a monster and demanded he be more. Elena extended her hand, palm up. Then take the blood bond, make me untouchable, and we'll face Constantine together. Draven's hand trembled as it rose to meet hers. This will hurt. Everything about Thornwick hurts. Elena's smile was bitter and brave. At least this pain has purpose. His fingers wrapped around her wrist, cool and careful. Close your eyes. She did. She felt his breath against her pulse, unnecessary breath, a ghost of humanity. Then the sharp, bright pain of fangs piercing skin. And then, everything. The world exploded into sensation. Elena gasped as Draven's mouth sealed over the wound on her wrist, his tongue moving against her skin in ways that should have repulsed her, but instead sent fire cascading through her veins. Not pain, or not only pain, but something else entirely. Pleasure and violation and intimacy woven so tightly she couldn't separate them. And then his emotions crashed into her like a tidal wave. Loneliness, 5 centuries of it. Vast and crushing and absolute. The weight of watching everyone he'd ever cared for crumble to dust while he remained unchanged. The specific agony of Catherine's death, relived in crystalline detail, her blood cooling in his arms, her final breath against his lips, her eyes dimming while he begged her not to leave. Hunger, not just for blood but for warmth, for connection, for anything that reminded him he'd once been human. A gnawing void that never filled, never quieted, only occasionally subsided into bearable ache, shame for every life he'd taken, every scream he'd caused, every time he'd chosen his own survival over mercy. Mountains of guilt stacked so high they blotted out the sun, and beneath it all, threading through the darkness like golden wire, hope. Fragile, tentative hope that maybe this time would be different. That maybe Elena wouldn't break or flee or die. That maybe after 500 years of existence, he could finally be something other than monster. Elena's knees buckled. Draven caught her with his free arm, never breaking the seal of his mouth against her wrist. The room spun, or perhaps it was her soul spinning, pulled from its moorings and tangled with his. Then he released her, pulling back with visible effort. His eyes blazed pure crimson now, inhuman and beautiful and terrible. Blood, her blood, stained his lips. He looked drunk with it, overwhelmed, and for a heartbeat Elena saw the predator fully unmask. Your turn, he said hoarsely, and bit into his own wrist. Black blood welled from the wound, darker than any human blood should be. He held his wrist to her mouth, and Elena's stomach revolted even as something deeper, some newly awakened instinct, surged with hungry recognition. Drink, Draven commanded, his voice layered with power that bypassed her conscious mind. Complete the bond. Elena's lips parted. The blood touched her tongue and she nearly vomited. It tasted of copper and earth and something ancient that had no name. But she forced herself to swallow, once, twice, 3 times, until Draven pulled his wrist away and the wound sealed instantly. The effect was immediate. Power flooded through Elena's body like lightning, rewiring every nerve, every cell. Her vision sharpened until she could see individual dust motes floating in the firelight. Her hearing expanded until she caught Lillian's heartbeat from across the room, the creak of the manor's foundations, the distant howling of wolves in Constantine's forest. And Draven, she felt him everywhere, his presence wrapped around her consciousness like a second skin. His hunger was a low drum in her blood. His determination was steel in her spine. His affection, gods. His affection for her was a warm glow she hadn't expected, tentative and growing and absolutely genuine. I can feel you, she whispered, pressing her hand to her chest as if she could physically touch the connection. And I you. Draven swayed slightly, catching himself against the mantel. His eyes never left her face. Your fear, your courage, your fury at being trapped. And underneath, he stopped, expression softening. Compassion. Even after everything, you look at me with compassion. Elena did feel it, felt her own emotions reflected back through their bond, amplified and made strange. She was terrified, yes. Angry at the covenant and the danger and the loss of choice. But she also felt sad for him, Sad for the lonely creature who'd spent centuries trying to atone for sins he could never erase. The bond is sealed. Lillian's voice broke the moment. She stood now, moving to the window. The wards are already strengthening. Can't you feel it? Elena could. The manor itself seemed to pulse with renewed vigor, its ancient stones humming with power. Through her enhanced senses, she perceived what she'd missed before, threads of crimson energy woven through every wall, every door, every window. Draven's blood made manifest, and now her blood too, creating a barrier that thrummed with protective force. Constantine will feel it, Draven said, straightening. Color had returned to his face, her blood, sustaining him, making him stronger. He'll know we've bonded. It will enrage him. Good. Elena's voice came out harder than she'd intended. The bond had given her something of Draven's steel, his predator's confidence. Let him come. Let him test these wards and break himself against them. Draven's eyes widened slightly, and she felt his surprise ripple through the connection. Elena, I'm tired of being afraid. She moved to the window, standing beside Lillian, staring out at the forest where shadow shapes prowled. I'm tired of being prey. You gave me your blood, your strength. Now let's use it. The bond is hours old, Draven warned, moving behind her. You're feeling its power, but you haven't learned control. Your body is changing, healing faster, sensing more, burning energy at inhuman rates. You'll need to feed soon, more than normal, sleep less. Your emotions will be volatile until the connection stabilizes. How long? Elena interrupted. Days. Perhaps a week. He touched her shoulder carefully, and the physical contact sent their bond flaring bright. Elena gasped at the intensity, feeling not just his touch but his need for the touch, his relief at being allowed to offer comfort. We have 3 days until the blood moon. 3 days to prepare you for what's coming. Elena turned to face him, and with their bond open between them, she saw him truly for the first time. Not the monster, not the lord, just Draven, 500 years old and still learning how to be gentle. Still trying to be worth the mercy he'd been shown. Then we'd better not waste them, she said. Teach me. Show me how to survive in your world. Through the bond. She felt his pride bloom warm and golden. As you wish, Draven murmured. But first, you need to rest. The bond's formation is exhausting. Lillian will show you to your room. Will I dream of you? Elena asked. His smile was sad and knowing. Every night from now on, as I'll dream of you. Then I'll see you in the darkness. Elena said and meant it as promise, not threat. Elena didn't sleep so much as fall into Draven's consciousness. The dreams came in fragments, his memories bleeding into hers through the bond. She stood in a medieval battlefield, sword in hand, mortal and afraid. She knelt in a cathedral, praying for salvation that never came. She felt Severin's fangs pierce her throat, felt the violation of her humanity being drained away and replaced with darkness. She watched through Draven's eyes as he killed for the first time, a young woman traveling alone, her screams echoing through centuries. Felt his hunger satisfied and his horror at what he'd become warring for dominance. She lived through decades of slaughter, of aristocratic hunts where humans were prey, of blood-soaked ballrooms and midnight feedings. She felt him become the monster completely, felt humanity slip away like water through fingers. Then Catherine. Elena experienced their meeting, the village girl with wild curls and fearless laughter, who'd stumbled upon the Lord of Thornwick in his garden at midnight. Who hadn't run, who'd sat beside him and talked about stars and dreams and the unbearable weight of loneliness. She felt Draven fall in love. Felt him try desperately to stay away, to protect this bright creature from his darkness. Felt him fail. The first feeding was gentle, Catherine had offered, had wanted to ease his loneliness. But one feeding became 2, became 10, became an addiction. Elena felt Draven's horror as he realized what he was doing, how Catherine grew paler, weaker, even as she smiled and insisted she was fine. The night Catherine died, Elena died with her. Felt the girl's heartbeat stutter and stop. Felt Draven's anguish crack the world open. Heard his vow screamed into the uncaring night. Never again. Never again. Elena woke gasping, tears streaming down her face, Draven's 500-year grief a living thing in her chest. He stood at her window, silhouetted against the pre-dawn darkness. He hadn't been there when she'd fallen asleep, but the bond had drawn him when her dreams turned to nightmares. I'm sorry, he said without turning. The bond is raw still. My memories leak through. I should have warned you more specifically. Elena sat up, pulling the blankets around herself. Her wrist throbbed where he'd bitten her, not pain exactly but awareness. The wound had already healed to 2 small scars, pink and tender. I saw her, Elena whispered. I felt her die. Yes, his voice was hollow, That's the burden you've taken on. My past is yours now. My guilt, my grief, you'll carry it as I do. Good. He turned then, surprise flickering across his features. Elena stood, moving to the window beside him. Through their bond, she felt his tension, his fear that she would reject him now that she'd seen the full scope of his darkness. You've carried it alone for 50 years. That's enough? Elena, I'm not saying I forgive you. She met his crimson gaze steadily. Those people you killed, Catherine especially, they deserved better. You were a monster. But you're not anymore. Or you're trying not to be. And maybe, she touched the window glass, feeling the ward's pulse beneath her fingertips. Maybe that's what the covenant was always meant to be. Not punishment, partnership. Draven's hand rose to the glass near hers, not touching but close. You're more generous than I deserve. Probably. Elena's smile was brittle. But I'm bound to you now. Blood to blood. I might as well make it bearable. She paused, feeling something shift through their connection, movement in the forest. A disturbance in the wards. What is it, Constantin? Draven's expression hardened. He's testing the strength and barriers, feeling for weaknesses. Elena closed her eyes, focusing on the bond, on the threads of power that connected her to Thornwick. She could sense them now, dozens of vampires circling the estate like wolves, pressing against the wards, searching for cracks, and at their center, a presence so dark and cold it made even Draven's darkness seem warm by comparison. He's powerful. She breathed. He's ancient, older than me by centuries. Draven's jaw clenched. But the bond has made you sacrosanct. To break through the wards now, he'd have to kill me first. Then that's what he'll try to do. No hesitation, no false comfort, just brutal truth. Tomorrow night is the blood moon. He'll come with his full coven. Perhaps 20 vampires, all of them killers. They'll try to breach the wards through sheer force, or draw me out into open combat. Can you win? Elena asked. Against 20. Through the bond? She felt his uncertainty before he spoke it. I don't know. In my prime, yes. But I've spent 50 years feeding on animals, restraining my power, dampening my instincts. I'm stronger with your blood in me, but Constantin has been hunting and killing without pause for 400 years. He finally looked at her. If it comes to direct combat, I may lose. Then we don't let it come to that. Elena's mind raced, the bond feeding her information, vampire lore, blood magic principles, Draven's own strategic knowledge flowing through their connection. The wards are strongest at the gates and the hedgerows, yes. Yes. Why? Because you've been thinking like prey. Defending, waiting for the attack. Elena turned from the window, pacing the room as thoughts crystallized. But we have 3 advantages. They don't know the full strength of our bond yet. 2, this is your territory, you know every inch of Thornwick. 3, they're expecting you to fight alone. Draven's eyes narrowed. Elena, you cannot. Fight beside you. Actually, I can. She held up her scarred wrist. Your blood is in me. I'm faster, stronger, I heal rapidly. And through the bond, we can coordinate in ways they can't anticipate. 2 minds, 1 purpose. You're mortal still. 1 mistake will kill me. I know. Elena's voice steadied with resolve she hadn't known she possessed, or perhaps it was Draven's courage flowing through their connection. But I didn't accept this bond just to hide in the manor while you face Constantin alone. If we're partners, then we're partners. Through the bond, she felt his emotions war, terror at the thought of her in danger, pride at her courage, and beneath it all, something warmer. Something that felt almost like, I can't lose you, he said quietly. Not after Catherine. Not after finally having someone who... He didn't finish, but Elena felt the ending through their bond who sees me and doesn't run. Then don't lose, she said simply. Teach me to fight, we have 1 day to prepare. Let's use it. Draven stared at her for a long moment, then nodded once, sharp and decisive. 1 day. He agreed. Then we show Constantin what it means to challenge a bonded pair. The training began at dawn, or what passed for dawn in Thornwick's perpetual twilight. Draven led Elena to the ballroom where the covenant rituals had been performed, the vast space now cleared of dust and debris. Lillian watched from the piano, her ancient eyes tracking every movement. The bond makes you faster, stronger, but it doesn't make you a warrior, Draven said, circling Elena like a predator assessing prey. Constantin's coven will try to separate us, to isolate you. You need to know how to survive long enough for me to reach you. He moved without warning, a blur of speed that Elena's enhanced senses almost tracked. Almost. His hand closed around her throat, gentle, controlled, but the threat was clear. What do you do? He asked. Elena's instinct screamed to pull away, but through the bond she felt his intention, teach, don't harm. She forced herself to think. His grip was on her throat, but her hands were free. Her new strength coursed through her muscles. She drove her palm upward into his chin, twisting simultaneously. Draven released her, stepping back with an approving nod. Good. Vampires are fast and strong, but we're not indestructible. The throat, the eyes, the heart, these remain vulnerable. He gestured to a table laden with weapons, wooden stakes, silver blades, vials of what looked like holy water. Silver burns us. Wood through the heart paralyzes. Decapitation kills permanently. Fire works, but it's unpredictable. Alina picked up a silver dagger, feeling it hum against her palm, Draven's blood in her veins reacting to the metal. Will these work against Constantine? They'll slow him, but killing him requires more than weapons. Draven's expression darkened. He survived 4 centuries through cunning and cruelty. He won't fight fairly. He'll use hostages, deception, psychological warfare. He'll threaten Lillian. He'll make you watch as he tears me apart. Whatever breaks you fastest. Then we don't let him break us. Elena set the dagger down, moving to face Draven directly. The bond, can we use it in combat? Share awareness, coordinate attacks. Through their connection, she felt his surprise bloom into something like excitement. Yes. If we're in sync, you could anticipate my movements, I could feel threats to you before they manifest. He took her hands, and the bond flared bright between them. But it requires trust. Complete openness. No shields, no barriers. You'd feel every moment of my hunger, my violence, my predator's joy in the hunt, and you'd feel my fear, Elena countered, my mortality, my human fragility. Less. His grip tightened. Are you certain you want this? Once we're fully open to each other during combat, there's no closing that door. You'll know the monster intimately. Elena thought of the dreams, of Catherine dying, of centuries of blood. She thought of the loneliness that had driven Draven to make his vow, the grief that haunted him still. I already know the monster, she said softly. No, let me know the man who caged it. Something shifted in Draven's eyes, gratitude, wonder, and deeper still, the beginning of something neither of them dared name. They spent the day training, pushing Alina's new abilities to their limits. She learned to move with vampire speed, to strike with inhuman strength, to sense threats through the bond's awareness. Draven was a merciless teacher, attacking without warning, forcing her to react on instinct. By afternoon, Alina's body sang with exhaustion and exhilaration. She'd landed 3 strikes that would have seriously injured a mortal opponent. She'd dodged attacks she couldn't physically see, trusting the bond's warnings. And once, for just a heartbeat, she and Draven had moved in perfect synchronization, her feint drawing an imaginary opponent's guard down while his strike would have pierced their heart. Better, Draven acknowledged, breathing hard, unnecessary breath, but the habit of exertion remained. You're a natural. I have a good teacher. Elena wiped blood from her split lip. It had already stopped bleeding, the wound closing. And good motivation. I'd rather not be Constantine's entertainment. As if summoned by his name, the manor shuddered. Draven's head snapped toward the windows. Through the bond, Elena felt his sudden spike of alarm. They're here, he said. Earlier than expected. Elena followed his gaze. Beyond the gardens, beyond the hedgerows, the forest had come alive with movement. Dozens of figures emerged from the trees, pale forms in elegant clothing, moving with predatory grace. And at their center, a figure that radiated power like a dark sun, Constantine. He was beautiful in the way of Renaissance paintings, classical features, golden hair, dressed in white that made him look like an avenging angel. But his eyes, even from this distance, were black as pitch. Solace, the blood moon doesn't rise for hours yet, Elena said, her voice steady despite the terror coursing through her veins. He's not waiting. Draven moved to the weapons table, strapping silver blades to his coat. He thinks catching us unprepared will give him advantage. A dark smile, he's wrong. Elena armed herself, daggers at her belt, a stake in her boot, holy water veils in her pockets. Through the bond, she felt Draven's pride in her composure, felt his fear for her safety warring with his respect for her courage. Lillian. Draven called to the girl at the piano. You know where to hide. The sanctuary beneath the chapel. Lillian confirmed, sliding from the bench. She moved to Elena, hugging her fiercely. Don't die, please. I've only just found you. Elena held her tight. We'll survive. All of us. Lillian pulled back, her gray eyes ancient and knowing. He'll offer you a choice. Constantine always does. Whatever he offers, it's a lie. Then she was gone, disappearing into the manor's shadowed corridors. Draven and Elena stood alone in the ballroom as Constantine's voice echoed across the grounds, amplified by power, reaching every corner of Thornwick. Lar di divem. I've come to collect what you've stolen. Send out the Ashford hare, and I'll grant you the mercy of a clean death. Refuse, and I'll make you watch as I turn her into my plaything for the next century." Through the bond, Alina felt Draven's rage, cold, controlled, absolutely lethal. "Together?" she asked, moving to stand beside him. His hand found hers, their fingers interlacing. Through their bond, barriers fell away completely. His consciousness merged with hers, two minds, two souls, one purpose. "Together," Draven confirmed. Until the end, they walked toward the manor's entrance as the blood moon began its ascent. The blood moon hung low and swollen as Alina and Draven emerged onto Thornwick's front steps. Constantine's coven spread across the grounds like a plague. 20 vampires arrayed in a semicircle, their eyes glowing in the crimson moonlight. They wore their immortality like crowns, beautiful and terrible. Each one a predator who'd hunted for decades or centuries. But it was Constantine who commanded attention. He stood at the center, arms outstretched in mock welcome, his white suit pristine despite the mud and blood that stained the earth around him. Up close, Alina could see the wrongness in him. His beauty was a mask stretched too tight over something ancient and utterly inhuman. "Draven." Constantine's voice was honey-laced with arsenic. "Still playing at civilization, I see. And this must be the Ashford hair." His black eyes fixed on Alina, and she felt violation in that gaze, felt him trying to pierce through her defenses. "Such fire in you, such delicious fear underneath. You'll taste exquisite." Through the bond, Alina felt Draven's fury, but she also felt his control. They'd planned for this, anticipated it. "She's under my protection," Draven said, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. "Bound by blood and covenant. Touch her and you violate laws older than your existence." Constantine laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Laws? You speak to me of laws while you cower behind wards like a frightened child." He gestured to his coven. "I've brought friends, old monster. 20 of us to your one. Even with your little pet enhanced by the bond, the mathematics are simple. Then come test them." Draven descended the steps, and Alina moved with him, perfectly synchronized. Through the bond, she felt his strategy, draw them closer to the manor, where the wards were strongest. Cross the threshold. See what happens to those who threaten what's mine. What's yours? Constantine's smile widened. "She's not yours, Draven. She's a debt. A collar. A leash you've wrapped around your own throat." He began to circle, his coven moving with him, tightening their formation. "But I'm a generous lord. I'll offer you both a choice. Here it comes." Alina whispered through the bond. "I know," Draven responded silently. "Remember, whatever he offers is poison." Constantine stopped directly opposite them, the blood moon framing him like a halo. "Alina Ashford, I will release you from your covenant, break the bond, set you free to live your mortal life far from this cursed place." His hand extended, pale and perfect. "All you need do is cross the wards. Come to me willingly, and I'll spare both Draven and the child. You'll walk away tonight, unmarked, unharmed." The lie tasted like ash even through the bond. Alina felt Draven's certainty. Constantine would torture her the moment she crossed the barrier. Would use her screams to break Draven's resolve. Would kill them all regardless. But she also felt something else through the bond. Draven's fear that she might believe it. That she might choose freedom over their partnership. Alina stepped forward, and felt Draven's panic spike. "Your offer is compelling," she said, her voice carrying across the grounds. "Freedom. Safety." My mortal life returned. She moved closer to the ward's edge, feeling them hum against her skin. "But you've made one critical error, Constantine." His expression flickered, curiosity replacing certainty. "You assumed I wanted freedom." Alina's hand moved to her wrist, to the scars Draven's fangs had left. "You assumed the bond was a prison. But you're wrong." She turned, meeting Draven's crimson eyes, letting him feel everything through their connection, her choice, her certainty, her acceptance. "I'm exactly where I choose to be." Power exploded through the bond, Draven's hope and her courage merging into something greater than either alone. The wards blazed crimson, responding to their unified will. Constantine's beautiful face twisted with rage. "Then you'll die together." A romantic ending for a pathetic love story. He gestured sharply. "Take them." The coven surged forward, and Alina and Draven moved as one. Through the bond, they were seamless. Alina felt Draven's combat instincts guiding her body, while her human creativity fed him strategies he'd never considered. When 3 vampires converged on Alina, Draven was already there, moving through trajectories she'd anticipated a heartbeat before. When Celine lunged at Draven's blind spot, Alina's thrown dagger caught her in the throat. The battle was chaos and precision simultaneously. Silver flashed, holy water burned, Vampires screamed as they crossed the wards and Thornwick's ancient magic tore at them. But they kept coming, driven by Constantine's will and the promise of blood. Elena took a clawed strike across her ribs that would have disemboweled a normal human. The wound burned, but through the bond, Draven's strength flowed into her, accelerating her healing. She drove a stake through her attacker's heart, felt him crumble to paralyzed stillness. Draven fought like the monster he'd been, beautiful and terrible, a blur of violence that left ash and screaming in its wake. But Elena felt his control through the bond, felt him choosing every kill carefully, felt his grief for each life taken even as necessity demanded it. They were winning. Slowly, brutally, but winning, until Constantine himself entered the fray. He moved faster than thought, bypassing Draven entirely and appearing before Elena with one hand around her throat. Cleaver children, but I've lived 4 centuries. I don't lose to. Elena smiled through the crushing grip. Now, she gasped through the bond. Draven appeared behind Constantine. Not through speed but through the bond's awareness, through knowing exactly where Elena needed him. His silver blade pierced Constantine's back, driving through ancient ribs toward the heart. Constantine roared, releasing Elena and spinning. But the distraction cost him. Draven's second blade, holy water coating the silver, stabbed upward through Constantine's jaw into his brain. The ancient vampire staggered, black blood pouring from his wounds. His coven froze, watching their leader falter. Live, Draven commanded, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. Your lord is broken. Leave Thornwick's territory and I'll let you flee. Stay and share his fate. Silence stretched across the grounds. Then Celine turned and ran. Others followed. Within heartbeats, the coven had scattered into the forest, abandoning their fallen lord. Constantine collapsed to his knees, the silver and holy water burning through him. You haven't won, he rasped. This ends nothing. It ends your threat, Draven said coldly. He looked to Elena. Through the bond, she felt his question, mercy or justice. Elena thought of Catherine, of Lillian's family, of 2 centuries of terror Constantine had inflicted. Justice, she said. Draven's blade took Constantine's head in one clean stroke. The ancient vampire crumbled to ash, scattered by wind that smelled of roses and rain. The blood moon reached its apex, bathing Thornwick in crimson light. Elena collapsed against Draven, exhausted and exhilarated and alive. We survived, she whispered. We did more than survive. Draven's arms wrapped around her, careful despite the blood and ash. Through the bond, she felt his awe. We became something new, something neither vampire nor human, but partners, Elena finished. Blood to blood, choice to choice. For how long? Draven asked quietly. Your 30 years. Elena pulled back to meet his eyes. For however long we choose. The covenant said 30 years. But I choose longer. She touched his face, feeling the cold marble skin warm slightly beneath her palm. Her life, her heat, shared through their bond. I choose forever, Draven. However many mortal years I have, I choose this. I choose us. Through the bond, his love, there was no other word, blazed like sunrise. Then forever it is, he murmured, and kissed her beneath the blood moon while Thornwick's wards sang with their covenant renewed, not of debt or obligation, but of choice.